Bishop Robert, thank you so much for doing this in the middle, at the end of what has been a very long Bishops' Council, and a very early start tomorrow. It's terrific that you've been able to make the time for this, and the number of people who are still joining us, I think, is testimony to the interest that we have. So all over to you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Andrew, very much. And thank you for the suggestion that I do this little presentation, which I appreciate the opportunity to share what was a remarkable experience. We're all too frequently told that some event is historic or the first time since the Reformation, but the state visit by the King and Queen of England to Pope Leo XIV was truly both of those. It was historic and it was a first since the Reformation. It was the first time that a British monarch has shared publicly in a service of prayer with a pope. And it embodied and carried forward our ecumenical friendship as people in the Church of England with the Roman Catholic Church in a remarkable way. But to understand the significance of the event, it's helpful just to reflect a little bit on the history. I'm not a great historian of the 16th century or 17th century, but a few relevant facts. Now I need to get how do I get my presentation is just frozen. Oh dear, where am I gone now? You are screen sharing, but I'm on a page not found. Oh, let me try and get back. Here we are. So, next slide. Are you seeing my second slide there? The tomb of Elizabeth I above Mary. So, slideshow from the beginning, from current slide. Try that. Ooh. Resume slideshow.
There you go.
There we are. Yeah, we're back. It froze. Sorry, I just had a technical problem with the computer. So now there were a series of acts of Parliament, the British Parliament, between 1529 and 1536. This was during the time of Good King Henry VIII. Those acts of Parliament transferred all spiritual and canonical authority over the English Church from the papacy to the Crown. And the 1534 Act of Supremacy made Henry VIII supreme head of the Church. And if you ask Roman Catholics, school children in most of Europe, if they know anything about the Anglican Church at all, that is the one fact they know, that Henry VIII was made supreme head of the Church. And that was in 1534. That supremacy was briefly repealed during the reign of his daughter, the Catholic Queen Mary, but it was re-established during the reign of his second daughter, the Protestant Elizabeth. So Mary and Elizabeth stood for opposing positions, Mary Catholic, Elizabeth Protestant. And the vigour with which Queen Mary, attempted to reverse the English supremacy led to much shedding of blood, so that she became known as Bloody Mary. She was on the throne for a relatively short time. Elizabeth was on the throne for many years and established the Protestant Church of England with something that we now know as the Elizabethan settlement. They were opposed. They were on completely opposed religious positions, but James I, the next monarch after Elizabeth, had them interred one on top of the other in a vault in Westminster Abbey. And what is remarkable is the Latin inscription on the vault. You can see the Latin inscription there, which in English reads, "Consorts in realm and tomb, here we sleep, Elizabeth and Mary, sisters in hope of resurrection." And that tomb and the inscription are a powerful sign of longing for the restoration of unity by the two positions embodied by these two sisters, longing for the restoration of unity and of hope in the healing power of Christ and his resurrection. Here we sleep, Elizabeth and Mary, sisters in hope of resurrection. Well, sadly, during the centuries that followed, relations between Catholics and Protestants in England and indeed between England and Rome, were not marked by anything like brotherly or sisterly affection. Much blood was shed, and there were many martyrs on both sides. Long after the violence ended, that they remained strangers to each other, did Catholics and Anglicans. The first attempts at any serious conversations between the two were in Belgium, in Mechelen, known as the Malines Conversations in 1921. But those conversations didn't really go anywhere, and the Catholic bishops of England were not enthusiastic about them. It was only in 1960 that the first visit of an Archbishop of Canterbury to Rome in modern times took place. Fisher visited Rome 3 times, and his visit in 1966 led to the opening of the Anglican Centre in Rome, of which I'm now a governor. Queen Elizabeth II visited Pope John XXIII in 1961, but it wasn't until 1982, which most of us can remember as not very long ago, it was only 1982 that full diplomatic relations between the UK and the Holy See were established. Happily, after Vatican II in the 1960s, relationships between the Anglican Communion and the Roman Catholic Church moved on in leaps and bounds. The relationship progressed and it warmed with the inauguration of the Archic Dialogues. And a new climate of friendship was formed and now exists. And it is that and the fruit of that relationship which enabled this historic state visit. And the visit of King Charles and Queen Camilla, accompanied by the Archbishop of York last week, was a significant step forward, both at the level of 2 states, the Vatican State and the United Kingdom, and at the level of churches, the Roman Catholic Church and the Anglican Communion. I was privileged to be seated very near the front of the morning service, which was jointly presided over by Pope Leo and the Archbishop of York in the Sistine Chapel. This chapel is one of the greatest artistic treasures of Western civilization. It is the place that was used for the conclave which chose the new pope. If you've seen the film Conclave, then you'll have seen the Sistine Chapel on that film. But it's hardly ever used for services of worship. I was told that it's used, there's an annual baptism service there, but apart from that, there's almost no services held there apart from extremely special occasions, of which this was one. It would be hard to imagine a more magnificent setting. Music was provided by cantors from the Sistine Chapel and singers from St George's, Windsor and St James's Palace. So you had an Anglican choir and a Catholic choir. The service was themed on care for creation, which is a special interest of the King. The Foreign Secretary from Britain, Yvette Cooper, who happened to be seated directly in front of me, read from Romans 8. She was said to be quite nervous. Even for an experienced politician, reading from the King James Bible in the Sistine Chapel could be intimidating. And the closing prayers were said jointly by the Pope and the Archbishop. After that service, about 25 minutes after that service concluded, we were taken by minibus to St. Paul's outside the walls, which is one of the principal basilica in Rome, for a much bigger ecumenical service presided over by the abbot of the basilica. This is one of my very favorite churches in Rome. It's the burial place of St. Paul, and you can see that kind of structure to the left of your picture, which is built over St. Paul's tomb. And I can say that I think one of the things that King Charles found the most moving of his whole visit was going down into the tomb area and praying with Camilla at the tomb of Paul, and he spent some time there. So this is a picture of various sort of cardinals and bishops gathering for the service. opening remarks at the service were made by Cardinal Harvey, who spoke about the importance of this basilica for relationships with the English. He told us that Anglo-Saxon kings had traditionally been protectors of the building, i.e. they financially supported the building, and reminded us that this was the place where Pope Paul VI had presented Archbishop Michael Ramsey with his episcopal ring in 1966. Cardinal Harvey introduced the central symbolic action of the service. King Charles was granted the title Royal Confreter of the Papal Basilica, and he was formally installed on this throne. On the throne, you can see are inscribed the royal coat of arms, along with the key ecumenical text from St. John, Ut unum sint, that they may be one. It was explained that this action was taken in thanksgiving for the steps which have been taken since the Second Vatican Council in the common ecumenical journey of the Church of England and the Church of Rome. Following the service, the assembly moved out of the basilica and gathered for a garden party at the Beda College, St. Bede's College, across the road from the basilica. The king was invited to unveil a plaque. He was presented with a bronze sculpture of St. Bede, and he was invited to symbolically plant, at least water, a young Seville orange tree. He chatted to many of us over a cup of tea. I thought that the cups of tea were a very nice English touch there. And I persuaded our new National Ecumenical Officer, Matthias Grieb, who is from our diocese originally and who is German in origin, to introduce himself. Matthias was a little bit shy, but he did introduce himself, and he explained his ecumenical role. So, well, this is what I do. I'm responsible for developing ecumenical relationships for the Church of England. And the king replied, well, I hope I may have helped a bit. The king, as well as believing strongly in creation care, is really committed to ecumenical relationships. And he has said, at least privately, I'm not sure about publicly, that he really longs and hopes for the day when we have intercommunion together. The whole visit was really tightly scripted. One of my colleagues from St. George's, Windsor, showed me the program, and it was all written in a notebook with every 5 minutes assigned an action. You know, that Queen Camilla will arrive at 14:15. She will spend 10 minutes talking to people. The plaque will be unveiled at this time, and at such and such a time, the royal party will leave. Incredibly well organized and scripted. I think this visit has been really important in several ways. Firstly, it has publicized to a wide audience the warm and friendly relationships that exist between the two churches. I know that the BBC carried a lot of publicity about this encounter. Hello Magazine featured it. It was on Sky News. It really had a very high profile, and that has to be a good thing. Because the old caricatures that we're still at war with one another, they still endure, and so it's really important to overcome those. So it portrays and projects the friendly relationships between us. Secondly, it provides a platform, I believe, for further ecumenical contact and action at all levels. I mean, this is an unambiguously good news story that we can talk about and share with our Roman Catholic brothers and sisters in whichever country we are. And then thirdly, it enacted symbolically our friendship and love for each other, and was another step forward in helping to overcome the divisions that have separated our two churches for 500 years. So really significant. The Vatican will have photographs, official photographs of this event. They'll cost you quite a lot. That's how the Vatican pays for things, by selling the photographs. So they're very highly protected. You'll get one printed copy. But I would encourage you to have a look at the Vatican website and see if there's a photo there of the King and the Archbishop of York and the Pope that you might like to buy and put up in your church building, if you have your own building, or to show to your Catholic colleagues. Because this is the kind of historic event and the kind of symbolism which is really impressive and will catch people's eyes and will speak far more than just a narrative account will do. So have a look for some pictures. So I was thrilled to be part of these extraordinary events. It was a huge privilege for me. There was just a small Church of England presence. Rob Warren was present too from All Saints Rome, so he took part also. And there were a few officers as well, but it was a fairly select gathering. So massive privilege to be involved. And I simply pray that God will continue to bless, guide, and lead all our efforts to build unity and togetherness, which is so important in a world which just seems to become increasingly polarized and divided. So that's about all I want to say. I'm going to stop sharing so that you can see me rather than the slides. There we go. And I need now to get back onto a view which, yeah, there we are. Everyone's present now. So delighted to take any questions that you might have.
The best way to indicate questions, because we are on 5 screens, 120 of us, will be to raise your yellow hand. So if you click on react at the bottom of your screen and put raise hand, then we can take the questions in turn for a few minutes. If you really can't find the react button, if you wave vigorously, I'll try and find you. Carol.
I can see Carol de Lusignan.
Hand raised.
You need to demute, Carol.
You're still muted.
I've been muted like a good girl. This may be a very basic question, but you've been going on about how historic it is. I just wondered, in fact, if any historians, not necessarily Robert, would know whether, because medieval popes and medieval monarchs didn't travel as much as that, whether there have actually ever been meetings between the Pope and the King of England or the Queen of England prior to the Reformation in the 16th century.
Prior to the Reformation, there almost certainly will have been. Yes, this is repairing the breach caused by the Reformation. And
I understand it's repairing the breach.
Yeah.
I just wondered whether
So we lost you, Carol.
they did that much traveling to pray together like you did.
Can't answer that definitively, but I'm pretty sure they will have done because
Okay.
because I know today, for example, the King of Belgium rather regularly goes to meet the Pope and meets with them. So it's Catholic monarchs routinely go and visit the Pope, and I imagine that's a tradition that goes back a very, very long way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Anybody else? Any questions, queries, thoughts?
Yeah, comments.
Mark Osborne.
The historic nature of the thing was that the king prayed with the Pope. Her Majesty the Queen went 5 times to visit various popes, but they never prayed together.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's just to make that clear. It's the fact that they were praying together. It wasn't just a meeting. Yeah.
When my father was ordained in 1962, if you had a meeting in England in order to talk about a new supermarket opening or the bypass or how churches could cooperate on an entirely civil matter, the Roman Catholic, if you wanted to say the Lord's Prayer at the end of the meeting, the Roman Catholics needed explicit permission from their bishop to pray with Protestants. That was in 1962. That's how far we've come. That's why it's so historic, so important to see the king praying with the Pope. Yes, big.
Thank you, Mark. That is really interesting testimony. Yeah. How recent is that? Probably a number of us have got stories from our families about how bad the relationships were. I certainly have, but I'm not going to share them now.
Hugh and then Angela.
Yeah, just to Thank you, Bishop. That was fascinating. Just an observation, really, in terms of our received history as members of the Church of England. And of course, if you look on an English coin, the anagram is actually the papal title granted to Henry VIII before the Reformation. That's never been rescinded. And of course, at the Shrine of Our Lady Walsingham, the Queen Mother, our beloved late Queen, and also the King have a candle lit every day at the Shrine of Our Lady Walsingham, which is a focus of extraordinary interdenominational dialogue between the Roman Catholic Church and the Church of England. And of course, during the Reformation, the Chapels Royal actually had a peculiar existence in the sense that it maintained certain practices which were not common outside of the Chapels Royal. So Henry VIII and indeed Elizabeth I had Mass, as they called it, said for them almost weekly in Latin. And I think one of the issues with the Anglican Roman Catholic dialogue is that actually we have so much more in common than we really think the most people perceive. And I'm sure that His Majesty's visit to Rome has been instrumental in disavowing some of those rather uninformed prejudices about what it means to be Roman Catholic or an Anglican.
Amen. Yeah, well said, Hugh. Absolutely agree. Yeah. Thank you. Angela.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, and in fact, it goes on a bit from what Father Hugh was saying. I was watching it on Italian television, and just to say, the commentary was superb, very positive towards Anglicans. And in fact, one of the things that the priest who was commenting said was that what they refer to as the Liturgy of the Hours, for us, the daily offices, are said by so many different Christian communities, Christian denominations, right across the world every day. And he emphasized how often we are all saying the same words. But it was a very, very positive commentary saying very nice things about the Anglican Church.
Well, that's so good to hear. And I would wager that for those of us who are Anglicans in Italy, it is the most and best publicity of our existence that we've ever had. I may be wrong, but I'd wager that that's the case. So that's another point for rejoicing, isn't it? And so good to hear that it was positive. Anne.
Yes, good evening. Three things went through my mind. Someone mentioned Walsingham when I was there not so long ago. It's truly shocking that you walk a mile from one chapel to the other. This literal mile apart always seemed so symbolic to me, so far between Catholic and Anglican. I'm Catholic. I'm Roman Catholic, as the name perhaps gives away. But I'm speaking from Stuttgart, where I attend also the Anglican Church, my mother tongue. And I was born in the 1960s, so you can imagine the kind of thing I grew up with, this Anglican Catholic, and how far apart. I wonder if the Catholic Church is so euphoric and over the moon as we are all here this evening. I shall make it my own business to try to find that out, whether it's the Anglicans who are more euphoric about it, or where it's truly shared, which also leads me to wonder who took the initiative.
Thank you, Anne. Some interesting reflections there. I don't know about the initiative, but I do know that this was at least 2 years in the making, this trip. And it was intended that the King would pray with Pope Francis, and that that didn't happen at the last minute because of the Pope's health. We need to be completely realistic that the Catholic Church is a huge worldwide organization, and it has dialogues with many different partners, not just with us. But what Vatican II did say was that amongst all its ecumenical partnerships and relationships, the Anglican Church held a special place, and I always get that sense that we are just treated really well when we go to Rome. Yeah, David and Diana.
Hello, thank you, Robert, very much.
Hi, Ben.
It's
Nice
just
to see you.
great. And I spent that day much more than usual on television news watching the event because I was so engrossed in it. And the sheer privilege of actually hearing Charles praying, hearing his words in prayer was for me very special. So I think my question is, and I'm not expecting a dramatic answer, is how would you hope to have it followed up?
Well, I think this needs to be followed up at all levels. I mean, I've talked about our churches getting photographs of this event and putting them up in their churches. I'd love our clergy to be talking to their Roman Catholic colleagues about what happened and what that might mean, and how we might develop relationships. I mean, as I travel around, I meet Catholic priests, and they're really often very keen to work with us, and I think this provides a stimulus at local level to do more together, pray together, worship together, do mission together at a local level. And it will undoubtedly provide a stimulus for much more formal level relationships, which some of us, and including myself, are involved in dialogues, and in meetings with members of the Dicastery for the Promotion of Christian Unity. There will be an impetus, when the Pope takes an interest and takes things forward like this, it causes senior hierarchs in the Catholic Church to feel affirmed in working more closely with us. So I think it will just be a matter of continuing to work together. I mean, I'm not expecting dramatic breakthrough, I have to say, because there are some issues, let's be really honest, on which we just do things differently and disagree. And the most obvious is the ordination of women, which we strongly believe in, and the Roman Catholic Church does not do. So that's something which is going to be difficult to overcome. Christine, and then John.
Okay, it's finally there. Yes, it's just a response really to Anne after her comments about very positive publicity in Italy. I live in France in a very small village. The Roman Catholic sector deals with 15 separate little churches. Our own chaplaincy in Marseille covers the Luberon as well, and we have 4 different places of worship. 2 we share with the Église Protestante, 1 with the Catholic Church. So that's a lovely cooperation. But what I wanted to say is that when we're not ministering in our own Anglican services, we always take part in services within our sector where we've been very warmly received and asked to do the intercessions, to read, and also to distribute the host, which to me is just an amazing privilege.
I would add to that.
Yeah.
We have on a number of occasions met our local bishop, the Bishop of Dean, and as my French is not very good, he always administers communion to me in English rather than in French.
Isn't that nice?
Which I think shows this great hope. And we also here have a wonderful Roman Catholic priest who lives in our village, but covers all the other 15 churches in the sector. He's a Colombian. I've never seen him wear a clerical collar yet. He's so informal.
Thanks very much. And we'll need to make this the last question. It's the last hand that I can see raised on my screen. John Babington in Aquitaine. Hello, John.
Hi, Robert. Nice to see you. Well, as you know, newly in Aquitaine, 4 months here, 4.5 months. And I just thought you and others might be interested to know that I had a meeting today with a relatively new Catholic priest in one of the parishes near Bordeaux, in Libourne, where we have a fellowship group meeting, and we're hoping to start we're hoping to do Christmas services and then maybe at Easter start a new congregation. And the Catholic Church in Libourne has been historically very opposed to anything ecumenical. And it's been for Anglicans living near there, that's been, there's been a constant no to doing things. But I just this morning was meeting with this new priest with one of our team, and the new priest, the first thing he said was, I was there when the Pope prayed with the King. And it was very exciting. He said, I wasn't in the church, but I was in the crowd outside. And it was a really good thing. And from there, he went to, I'm going to go to my bishop to ask which church you can use for Christmas and so on. And it was just a really lovely moment in this sense of what you're doing at a national or international level, filtering down, in this case, with somebody who was personally present because of a retreat he was on. I want to encourage you. I think it was a really good thing, and may open a door for us here.
Well, John, thank you. That's a wonderful story. That is a great story with which to finish, because that's an absolutely practical instance of how something that goes on in Rome amongst just a few select people has some impact really quickly in your chaplaincy, in an Aquitaine chaplaincy in Bordeaux. So that just shows, doesn't it? I want to so one final implication of this kind of a visit is that it might encourage the Church of England to invest more heavily in ecumenical relationships, which have been, I'm afraid to say, rather disinvested in the last decade or so, because people haven't been really sure whether there's much, fruit that comes from them. So we've tended to put all our money into other things. But this gives a real impetus to those of us who believe that mission and unity belong together, and that we need each other. And so that is a personal encouragement to me. So thank you all very much indeed for coming. So lovely to see so many faces, and so good for me, and I hope for us all, to be able to celebrate something which is just wholly good. We don't get that much good news these days, and this was just a wonderful, good, and lovely and beautiful occasion. So bless you all. The Lord be with you. And
Also with you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll say goodbye and thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Andrew, again for this excellent suggestion.
Thank you, Bishop Robert. God bless you, and God bless the King of the Pope. I think we're allowed to say that.
Yes, that's right. Long live the King.
Indeed. Thank you all so much for joining at short notice. We really appreciate it. Have a very, very good evening.